The story of how I took revenge on my wife for her infidelity. I never expected to be here, typing this out for strangers on the internet. But sometimes, the weight of betrayal is too heavy to carry alone. My name? Call me Reddit. My story? It's one of lies, deception, and revenge. I thought I had a good marriage. We weren't perfect, who is, but we had stability. Love, even. Or so I believed. Her name was Lisa. Beautiful, smart, the kind of woman who could silence a room with just a glance. We had been together for 8 years. Married for 5. I trusted her. I was a fool. It started subtly, the way all great betrayals do. A late-night text. A lingering smile at her phone. A slight shift in her routine. She began dressing differently, classier, more refined. New perfume. She claimed it was just self-care. I want to feel good about myself, she said, her voice laced with something I couldn't quite place. Then came the night she worked late. Lisa was a journalist, and deadlines were unpredictable. I didn't question it at first. But one night, when she came home well past midnight, I smelled it. Not her perfume. Not her usual scent. Something else. A hint of musk. A cologne I didn't recognize. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I did what any rational man would do, I followed her. The next evening, she left in her usual rush, muttering about an urgent story she had to cover. I waited 15 minutes before getting into my car and tailing her. My heart pounded as I kept my distance, headlights off, just another shadow in the night. She didn't go to work. Lisa parked outside an upscale restaurant. The kind of place we used to go before life got in the way. Before she started lying. I watched from across the street as a man approached her car. Tall, confident. He leaned into her window, whispering something that made her laugh. Then, she stepped out. And kissed him. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My breath caught in my throat. My stomach twisted into something ugly, something primal. She looked happy. Effortless. The kind of happiness I hadn't seen in her for months. I took a picture. My hands shook as I snapped it, the proof searing itself into my phone and my soul. I could have confronted her then. Stormed across the street. Made a scene. But I didn't. Because this wasn't just about cheating. This was about something bigger. Something deeper. This was about payback. And I wasn't going to rush it. I drove home, my mind spinning with possibilities. Lisa thought she was clever. Thought she could lie to me and get away with it. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The first crack in our marriage had formed. Now, I was going to tear it wide open. I spent the next few days gathering evidence. Every text, every call, every late-night excuse, compiled, categorized, and backed up in multiple places. I wasn't just planning to expose her, I was going to dismantle her entire world. I needed more than just a blurry photo outside a restaurant. If I wanted to ruin her, I had to be patient. So, I played the role of the clueless husband. Smiled when she smiled. Kissed her when she kissed me. When she told me she had to stay late again, I nodded and told her I understood. And then I followed her. It became a game. A sick, twisted game where I watched the love of my life betray me over and over again. Each time, I documented it. Hotel receipts. Candid photos of stolen kisses. Late-night rendezvous at places she thought were safe. She had no idea I was watching. Then, I found out who he was. Daniel Carter. A high-profile attorney. Married. 2 kids. A perfect life, on the surface. But just like Lisa, he was hiding secrets. I smiled to myself. 2 cheaters. 2 lives to destroy. I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to make them wish they had never met. Destroying them wasn't enough. I needed them to suffer. to feel the weight of betrayal as I had. And so, I devised a plan, one that would shatter their carefully constructed lives. Lisa's phone had been my goldmine. While she slept, I mirrored her messages to my laptop. Every text to Daniel, every desperate promise of love and secrecy, it was all there, waiting to be weaponized. First, I needed leverage. Daniel had a wife. Emily Carter. She was the key. I crafted an anonymous email. Attached were photos of Lisa and Daniel in their stolen moments, along with transcripts of their texts. I knew exactly when to send it, right as Daniel boarded a plane for an important case. He'd be unreachable. Emily would receive the evidence while he was in the air, helpless as his world burned around him. Next, I prepared Lisa's downfall. I sent a message to her editor, also from an anonymous account, claiming she had been falsifying sources. It was a lie, but a convincing one. Enough to cast doubt. Enough to make her career crumble beneath her. I pressed send. And waited. It didn't take long for the fire to spread. Emily confronted Daniel at the airport in front of his colleagues, her voice shaking with rage as she waved the photos in his face. His career, his marriage, ruined in a single moment. Lisa wasn't far behind. Her editor called her in for an urgent meeting. She left the house in a panic. I followed, just to see the look on her face when she realized her perfect life was over. I wasn't just exposing them. I was erasing them. Lisa came home that night in shambles. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she dropped onto the couch. She didn't look at me. She couldn't. I watched as she pulled out her phone, desperate for a lifeline. But there was nothing. Daniel had gone dark. Emily had locked him out of their house. His firm had already released a statement distancing themselves from the scandal. And Lisa? Her editor had put her on indefinite leave pending an investigation. She was unraveling. And I wasn't finished yet. Lisa barely spoke the next morning. She just sat there, staring at her coffee, lost in thought. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I had one last card to play, one final move that would leave no room for recovery. I pulled out my phone and sent her the pictures. The ones I had taken myself. The ones of her betrayal. She gasped when she saw them, her face draining of what little color remained. "Who are you?" she whispered. I smiled. "Just a man who knows the truth." Lisa was a shell of the woman she once was. She barely ate, barely spoke. The fire that once burned in her eyes had been replaced by a hollow emptiness. Daniel's career was over. His wife had taken the kids and filed for divorce. His firm had publicly condemned him. He had lost everything. And me? I had won. But victory felt empty. Lisa finally looked at me one evening, her voice barely a whisper. Was it worth it? I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure. Revenge had consumed me. And now, standing in the wreckage of what once was, I wondered if I had destroyed myself along with them. Days passed, but the emptiness remained. The thrill of revenge had faded, leaving a void I hadn't expected. Lisa was still in the house, but she barely existed. She moved like a ghost, her eyes sunken, her words minimal. Then, one night, she spoke. "I know you did it," she said quietly, staring at her untouched dinner plate. I didn't flinch. Did what? Her laugh was hollow. Don't play dumb. The emails. The photos. The lies to my editor. I know it was you. I met her gaze, unblinking. And? She leaned forward, her voice sharper than before. You ruined me. You ruined Daniel. But you forgot something. I frowned. What? She pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and slid it toward me. A video played, a recording of me sneaking into her office, accessing her computer, planting the false evidence. My heart stopped. Where did you get this? Lisa's lips curled into a faint smile. You're not the only one who can play dirty. The room closed in around me. My carefully woven plan had turned against me. Lisa wasn't just broken, she was plotting her own revenge. And I had just stepped into her trap. I swallowed hard, trying to maintain composure. My mind raced through possibilities. How had I been so careless? How long had she known? Lisa leaned back, crossing her arms. You thought you were the only one who could plan? Think again. I exhaled slowly. What do you want? Her smirk grew. Oh, don't worry. I'm not going to ruin you just yet. That would be too easy. I want you to suffer, the way you made me suffer. I clenched my fists under the table. I already won, Lisa. You lost your job. Your affair is out in the open. Daniel's life is in ruins. What more could you possibly do? Lisa's eyes darkened. You'll see soon enough. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in the house made my skin crawl. The game wasn't over, Lisa was just getting started. And for the first time since this all began, I wasn't sure if I would come out on top. Lisa was unpredictable, but I had underestimated just how dangerous she could be. I thought I had won the war, but the battle was far from over. It started with small things. My emails wouldn't send. My phone would randomly shut off. Passwords I had used for years suddenly stopped working. Lisa was in the shadows, pulling strings, waiting for me to unravel. Then came the whispers at work. My boss, normally indifferent, called me in one afternoon with a serious expression. Someone's been sending anonymous tips about you, he said. Questioning your integrity, your work. Any idea who would do that? I knew exactly who. Lisa was trying to turn the tables. And it was working. I clenched my jaw. It's nothing. Just someone with a grudge. But I was lying to myself. This wasn't just anything. This was war. That night, I came home to find Lisa waiting in the dimly lit living room. A glass of wine in her hand, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Rough day? She asked sweetly. I sat down across from her. Cut the games, Lisa. She took a slow sip of her wine. Oh, but I thought you liked games. Isn't that why you started all of this? I exhaled sharply. What do you want? She tilted her head. You ruined my life. So, I'm going to ruin yours. But I won't do it overnight. No, that would be too easy. I want you to feel it. Day by day, piece by piece, until you're left with nothing. A chill ran down my spine. I had pushed Lisa to her breaking point, and now, she was going to push me past mine. And for the first time since this all began, I was afraid. Lisa wasn't bluffing. The next morning, I received an email from an unknown sender. It contained a file, dozens of my own texts, emails, and searches. She had been gathering dirt on me just as I had done to her. A message followed, if I go down, you go down with me. I clenched my fists. She wanted a war. Fine. I spent the next few days preparing my final move. I transferred our joint savings to an account in my name. I changed the locks while she was out. And then, I filed for divorce, citing infidelity and emotional cruelty, backed by every shred of evidence I had. The day she was served the papers, she stormed into their house. You think you can get rid of me that easily? She hissed. I met her glare. It's over, Lisa. You lost. She let out a cold laugh. Oh, I lost. Let's see what the world thinks about that. She turned her phone toward me, recording everything. Say hello to the internet, she whispered. Let's see what the public thinks of your perfect revenge. The screen went dark, and my stomach dropped. This wasn't over. Not even close. The fallout was immediate. Within hours, Lisa's video had spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with opinions, some siding with her, others calling her manipulative. My inbox flooded with messages, some from journalists eager for an exclusive, others from strangers spewing vitriol. I underestimated her. Lisa wasn't just fighting back, she was turning the world against me. I tried damage control. I released my own statement, detailing her affair and the evidence I had compiled. But it was too late. The narrative had already shifted. In the court of public opinion, I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the villain. Then came the threats. Anonymous emails. Phone calls in the middle of the night. People accusing me of being a monster, a manipulator. My job put me on indefinite leave. Friends stopped answering my calls. Lisa had won the battle. But I wasn't ready to surrender the war. I had one last move left. Lisa had won the battle, but I wasn't about to let her win the war. She had taken my dignity, my reputation, my job, but she had underestimated just how far I was willing to go. I disappeared for a while. Let the public rage against me. Let Lisa bask in her victory. But behind the scenes, I was working. Gathering resources, calling in favors, setting my final plan in motion. One evening, she came home to find her bank accounts frozen. Every last dollar siphoned away. The house. No longer in her name. I had been patient, methodical, and now the law was on my side. She stormed into their house, eyes wide with panic. "What did you do?" I simply smiled. Checkmate. Her face paled as she checked her phone, realizing she had nothing left. No money. No influence. Just a public persona built on lies. "This isn't over," she hissed. I stepped closer, my voice a whisper. "Oh, but it is. You wanted a war, Lisa. You got one. And now, you've lost." For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw true fear in her eyes. I turned, walking away as she stood frozen in the ruins of her own making. It was over. In the days that followed, Lisa vanished from the public eye. Her carefully curated image had crumbled, and no amount of damage control could salvage it. News outlets moved on. The internet found a news scandal to obsess over. I should have felt victorious. But all I felt was empty. One evening, I sat in my near-empty house, staring at a half-drunk glass of whiskey. The thrill of revenge had long since faded, replaced by an unsettling quiet. The world had moved on, but I remained trapped in the wreckage. Then came the knock at the door. I hesitated, then opened it. Lisa stood there, disheveled, her eyes hollow. "Congratulations," she murmured. "You won." I said nothing. "But tell me something," she continued, her voice barely a whisper. "Are you happy?" I couldn't answer. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure. Lisa let out a breath, shaking her head. "Enjoy your victory. I hope it was worth it." And then, just like that, she walked away. Disappearing into the night. I watched her go, the weight of everything settling onto my shoulders. I had won. But at what cost? Days turned into weeks, but the emptiness never left. Lisa had disappeared completely, her presence erased from the world we once shared. I thought that would bring me peace. Instead, it left a void. I found myself scrolling through old photos, staring at memories that now felt like ghosts. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by someone I had destroyed. And for what? Justice? Closure? One night, I received an anonymous email. Just 2 words, "Look outside." My pulse quickened as I moved to the window. A car sat across the street, its engine idling. I couldn't see the driver, but I felt the weight of their gaze. Lisa. I knew it before she even stepped out. The way she carried herself, the quiet confidence. But something was different. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here to end this. She approached the door and knocked. I hesitated before opening it. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice hollow. She tilted her head, studying me. "You tell me. You won, didn't you? So why do you look just as broken as I feel?" I had no answer. She sighed. "I'm leaving. For good this time. I just wanted you to know something. You didn't ruin me. You freed me. I frowned. What does that mean? Lisa smiled, a sad, knowing smile. You spent so much time trying to destroy me that you never realized I was already lost. You just helped me see it. She turned and walked away, disappearing into the night once more. And as I stood there, watching her go, I realized something chilling. I had won the war. But I had lost myself in the process. Weeks passed, and I found myself drifting through life like a ghost. The satisfaction of revenge had been replaced by a suffocating emptiness. One evening, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at my phone. No texts. No calls. Just silence. My once carefully crafted world had crumbled, and I had no one left to blame but myself. I opened my laptop and logged into the anonymous forum where I had first shared my story. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I hesitated. What was left to say? I had won. I had taken my revenge, torn Lisa's world apart, and emerged victorious. And yet, I had never felt more hollow. With a deep breath, I typed my final message. Betrayal changes you. Revenge consumes you. In the end, neither will set you free. Then, without another word, I shut the laptop and walked away.